of, and today we're going to take a quick tour of our arcade, a walkthrough. So let's go in. This is the main room. And we'll just start over here. This is our Ms Pacman table. We got this one in November of 2021. And it's actually a converted Kickman machine, we found out as we were working on it. It had been poorly converted with a bad wiring harness. But after replacing the harness and repairing the monitor, it worked all right. We still have some work to do. We need to replace these control panels with authentic Ms Pacman ones, as they seem to be the original Kickman controls, and they need a little bit of rebuilding as they're wobbly, but otherwise the machine works okay. A couple fun facts about Ms Pacman. Ms Pacman was originally an unofficial kit called Crazy Auto, designed by the Games Computer Corporation, a group of kids essentially from MIT who had been designing upgrade kits for various arcade games such as Missile Command. The purpose of Crazy Auto was to make Ms Pacman harder and the ghost's behavior more unpredictable so that patterns could not be used to bypass every level. When Namco got wind of this, along with Midway, they requested to buy Crazy Auto per the terms of a lawsuit settlement with Atari that GCC could not create modifications without the permission of the original developers. Crazy Auto then became Ms Pacman, and it takes the form of an additional board attached via ribbon cable to the processor socket on an official Pacman board. So if you take the processor off and put the processor back into the Pacman socket, this game would become a Pacman. Over here in the Dynamo HS5, labeled Mortal Kombat, is our Konami Aliens. I actually have had this cab since high school. It was my first cabinet. It had a Mortal Kombat 2 in it, despite the Mortal Kombat labeling. That Mortal Kombat machine is now in a Mortal Kombat 1 cabinet we found and restored and in the other room. I'm a huge fan of Alien, as seen elsewhere in the room with lots of various Alien-related art in the corners. So my wife found this for me on K-Love, and we decided to get it. We love it. All the benefits of Contra with all the theming of aliens makes for a wonderful game. Although perhaps I need to put it in a cabinet with a better aspect ratio as the tops and bottoms are cut off on this screen. And this is our Centipede machine. This is actually the second game my wife and I got together. If you look at the side, you can see it's a pink model Centipede, so one of the earlier ones. And it's in fairly good condition. It does need some touch-ups here and there, especially on the side that is currently against Mortal Kombat. But you can see that the front is essentially immaculate, along with the marquee. The monitor needs a little bit of adjustment, but that's all right. A couple fun facts on Centipede. Centipede was the first arcade game designed by a woman, Donna Bailey, in concert with Ed Logg. Centipede was originally intended to be black and white, but Donna decided that she would rather have pastel colors available and felt very strongly about this and campaigned for them to be made available. So the result of this very colorful game, which proved to be extremely popular with women at the time, making it one of the greater successes, and ultimately led to the development of Atari's sequel, Millipede. For here we have our Tempest, 1981. This machine is the first one that my wife and I got together, and it took quite a while to fix it. It was sold to us, claimed to be just a dead flyback. Little do we know how wrong that was. It required the intervention of Andy B to help me fix this, and it took 9 months to get it working again. But for that, aside from this scratch on the side of the machine, it's immaculate, and we believe was essentially home use throughout its life. We have all the original documentation right down to the coin stickers that go on the door. So we're very pleased with this machine. When we purchased Tempest, it actually came with a box of Space Invaders components. The guy just wanted to get rid of it, so he gave it to us. And that's how we ended up with a board set for Space Invaders Deluxe. My wife then found a cabinet for it on Facebook Marketplace for somewhere in the neighborhood of $70, and we were able to get the thing to work. However, the cabinet that we got was terrible and needed a lot more restoration work than we could do. So, as luck would have it, we found a second Space Invaders Deluxe machine with a better cabinet, this cabinet, and we picked that up, even though it had no working boards. So we combined the best parts of both cabinets, creating this machine, and then we're able to put the parts to good use for other people on Kalov, and kept the empty cabinet for ourselves for a later project. Currently it's running Braze's multi-game board, so we have Space Invaders Deluxe and a whole bunch of other games, and it works great. This over here is Joanie Jukebox. Joanie is a 1955, I believe, Seeburg KD200 jukebox. Joanie was a gift from my dad to my mom when they got married, and has been in the family all that time. A few years ago, in 2018, Joanie died, and no jukebox repairman was willing to touch the machine. Why not? As it turns out, though a KD200 on the outside it may be, Joanie has custom hacked together internals that are either prototype or related to a different type of Seeburg jukebox entirely in nature, which makes it very difficult to work on as it matches no known wiring diagram. I even spoke to a jukebox expert in North Carolina. I was trying to get documentation or help on a different area of the jukebox that was more standard. And when I mentioned that the Tormat, which was designed for 160 selections, was functioning as a 200 selector unit, he told me that was impossible and the jukebox didn't work. And are you sure it plays 200 selections? And it does, and we use it pretty much every day. You can see it's got no records in it right now. That's because I'm in the middle of changing the records over for our spring selection. We did eventually get it working about 6 months ago after my mom gave it to us, as she had run out of patience trying to find people to fix this machine. And it took us quite a while to restore it. It turned out that it was mostly corroded contacts on the Tormat, 400 of them that needed repairing, and a few issues with the amplifier that are still unresolved, as well as the selector unit, which mostly just needed new tubes and capacitors, but other than that, it works all right. This pool table is another thing I inherited from my dad, done by Golden West Billiards. When we were moving cross-country from California to Virginia, my dad found an estate sale for a retired admiral, and this pool table was in it. He decided he needed it, and to the tune of $2,000, he acquired it. But it's absolutely beautiful, one of the most beautiful pool tables I've ever come across, with its cast bronze lion legs, and really fun to play on at parties. The only issue we have is that it's so large and so heavy that wherever we move is going to have a big enough room to put this, which is quite the constraint in of itself. As you can see where it is right now, it's pretty close to some of the games. Tempest, concerningly. So when people are here playing this machine, or playing the table, I always make them use a short cue if they're anywhere near one of these machines. Konami's X-Men. One of the loudest machines that we have, now that its hybrid sound module has been replaced. X-Men is a particular favorite of my wife's, as she's a huge Marvel fan. We found this machine in Michigan, and we decided then and there we had to go get it. So at 3 in the morning, we jumped in the car and drove off to Michigan, 9 hours each way, with snow-covered roads in order to get this machine and bring it back home. We really want to get the 6-player variant of X-Men, but them being as scarce as they are and expensive as they are, for now we have the 4-player. if we ever do manage to get a hold of the 6-player version, rest assured we will sell this. Something of note about the X-Men cabinets is that the Konami hybrid sound chip has a set of capacitors coated in black goo on them. And those capacitors over time will fail, resulting in the machine losing the ability to produce sound and the death of the hybrid sound chip itself. Without that chip, sound is inoperable and the replacement is impossible unless you get a hold of another X-Men board. So we're very lucky we were able to find another source for a replacement and put that in. Moving into the other game room, we have even more to see, starting with Space Station. Space Station is our first pinball machine. We got this one in Newport News, Virginia, which needed only very minor work, and is themed after NASA, which both my wife and I worked for, and in fact met at NASA. So we were thrilled to be able to acquire this particular machine. We even do have in the workshop a Space Shuttle machine, which is the direct predecessor to Space Station, but it needs considerably more restoration before we're able to put it in the game room. When it does come in the game room, it'll take the spot right where this robot is, next to Space Station. We also have a couple cocktails in here. We picked these up both at the same time. With a rather interesting story, you've got Crystal Castles and Asteroids Deluxe right next to each other. Story goes, on Craigslist I found a listing for a Space Invaders cocktail machine. And we already had a Space Invaders Deluxe that we got with Tempest, so we didn't need one of those. But the listing also said that the seller had a number of Atari cocktails available. And I'm a big fan of Atari games, and Crystal Castles in particular, and I told my wife, I might as well email him and see what he's got. What are the odds he has a Crystal Castles? I imagine it's pretty low that some random guy on Craigslist in Ohio has one, considering they only made 500. But as luck would have it, he did have one. And this is that machine. The only issue is, when we inquired about it, he refused to sell the machine to us, even though he mentioned he had it and it was for sale, unless we bought 2 machines, as he didn't really want to let go of the Crystal Castles. But I really wanted it, so we inquired what else he had, and he said Asteroids, Asteroids Deluxe, and Missile Command. So of those, I really wanted some Vector machines, as we had at the time our dead Tempest. So I drove to Ohio in a RAV4 and got both of these machines in the back for a pretty reasonable price and took them back home. They're both fully functional, except for the fact that sometimes on Crystal Castles, the Player 2 controls are a little wonky and don't work quite the same as Player 1, along with some audio changes. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but at some point I'll have to figure it out. But right now it's pretty low on the priority list. A couple fun facts about Crystal Castles. Franz Lanzinger, who did the design for Crystal Castles, included a number of Easter eggs, one of which, if you sit in the southeast corner of the map and jump 100 times on the first level, the word Atari will appear on the following level, level 2. And also, on another level, if you kill the witch Berthilda and then jump in the spot where she was, Franz Lanzinger's initials will appear on the screen. Crystal Castles was the first game that combined sprites and bitmaps together into one game, and also one of the very first games that has an ending. You can actually beat Crystal Castles, at which you'll get to the end, and the game will say, "Congratulations, I give up." It uses classical music derived from Franz Liszt and Tchaikovsky, and carries a fantasy theme centered around the titular character, Bentley Bear, who at one point was supposed to be Braveheart Bear, but concerns about reception from the Native American community necessitated the name change. To complement our X-Men machine, we have another 4-player, Atari's Gauntlet II. This is, of course, a original Gauntlet 1 cab that's been converted to Gauntlet 2, but Gauntlet, as X-Men is my wife's favorite large multiplayer game, Gauntlet is mine. I played this exhaustively in my youth, and was delighted at the opportunity to pick this machine up from an arcade in North Carolina. When we got it, it had a screen issue that the blue would be cut out after about a few minutes of playing. This proved pretty difficult to debug, as it wasn't just a color transistor, something else was going on in there. So ultimately I had to use a different 4900 chassis, which is now in this machine, but other than that it works great. The only other issue we had to solve is that when we got it, the speech chip didn't work. And the speech chip was a bear, because I thought at first I could replace it. That didn't work. And then there was a 1 mega ohm resistor, which was documented in an Atari field manual that I could add to that speech chip to make it work. It was just emitting garbled noises. And no, that did not work either. As it turns out, a mica capacitor on the board had gone bad, which is unusual. And we had to replace that capacitor in order to get the speech chip to finally work. Grouped next to Gauntlet in the fantasy theming is our Gate of Doom machine, or Dark Seal. Gate of Doom was the American release for, this particular game, but everywhere else in the world it was called Dark Seal. This particular game board we got from Germany, so it has the Dark Seal verbiage installed in it. This was a game I actually discovered in a rather embarrassing way when I was a kid on MAME trying to find Gauntlet. I accidentally found Gate of Doom and played it a lot, having enjoyed it so much, we decided to pick one up when a board became available. So this is a particular favorite. Tron. This machine we found in Maryland, and it's actually a complete rescue of a machine. It was found in the snow. I joke not. It was covered in snow, control panel, top of the machine. That was how it was advertised. And we went to go look at it because it was fairly cheap, this seeing as its condition was, well, very poor, even more poor than you see it now. And we were able to make a good deal on it. However, when the seller was literally handing us the machine, he dropped the monitor on the neck. So we dropped the price even lower, and we had to source a new burn-free tube for this machine. With the help of CD Jump, it has been a lot more reliable. It is using all the original boards, except for the linear power supply, which I have replaced due to corrosion. And it still admittedly needs a little bit more tender love and care. It has some issues, namely this hum bar on the monitor, which I'm hoping to repair. I have some additional parts for it. And the fact that the spinner sometimes spins randomly on Tron. And I'm not exactly sure what that issue is yet, but I'm hoping that we will soon find out. Right next to Tron, we have Mortal Kombat 2 in a Mortal Kombat cabinet. What happened here is we found this cabinet on Facebook Marketplace. It had been painted black and converted to a police trainer. I stripped the paint off the cabinet and installed new controls, built a new harness for it, and put a new marquee and bezel on. And this serves as the new home for my Mortal Kombat 2 board set, which is the first arcade board set I acquired, and that was previously in the Aliens cabinet in the other room. So now that the controls are actually accurate to a Mortal Kombat 2, minus the addition of a run button, at some point this was converted to a Mortal Kombat 3 or 4, and then to Police Trainer, I've had a lot more success playing the game, even though, by our own admission, my wife and I suck at this game royally.